Bitcoin continues to grind higher, crossing the $95,000 chasm as the stocks remain flat. Where is Bitcoin headed to next? Are we going to see 100K coming out of the weekend on Monday? We have that to talk about. Also, we're going to talk a lot of altcoins today. We're going to talk about Sui. We're going to talk about XRP. We got Forrest joining us. We're going to break down some charts. And what did Charles Hoskinson say about Ethereum going extinct in the next 10 years? What were his reasons? I guess we'll have that conversation again on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content where we take old, boring, stale information, repackage it up in a fun, sexy way. 85,000, 80,000, 77,000. It's all in the rear view. We are at a new threshold. We're at 95,000. We're only a few away from 100K. I feel like the day is here, right? What do you think? The day of six-figure Bitcoin?
Well, it's not here. It's at 95.
Almost here. Yeah. Very close. You do know that the bottom is in, right? On 77.
Sitting here,
you do realize that 77 is in.
You're rambling off random numbers. I'm like, what is this guy talking about? And what do I
do, baby? That's what I do.
Yeah, for sure. Forrest is joining us. That is Forrest Friday. Forrest, welcome back, my friend. Hope you've been doing okay.
What's up? Yeah, doing well.
How you feeling, Forrest? You feel bad for the bears?
Bullish.
You feel bad for the people that called for a bear market?
No mercy for them. Straight up, I don't want any pullbacks. I want to ice them out. I want 120K with nothing more than a 3 to 5% pullback. I want them to have to pay up.
I dig it. We're obviously going to talk some Bitcoin, and that's actually where we're going to start today. So we're going to start here. Bitcoin tops 95K for the first time in months as stocks remain flat. And speaking of stocks, here you are. Dow is flat. S&P flat. NASDAQ, though, is up a little more than 3/4 of a point, 0.8%. Russell down, and the VIX is down as well. VIX is at 25 again, which is good. We don't want to see the VIX go up. We had a decoupling kind of scenario, I guess, about a week ago, Forrest, where everyone's like, oh, decoupled. Well, it was a couple of weeks ago. It was on a Friday, right? Bitcoin was rallying, stocks were down, and then Bitcoin went into the weekend and it tanked. We saw something similar happen earlier this week, and then stocks started to run. And now we're seeing kind of a replay of what we saw from 2 Fridays ago, except not to the extent or level that we saw the drawdown in the stock market. Do you think that this trend, Forrest, can continue where stocks either are trending down or stay flat and Bitcoin gains? Because if you look at a Bitcoin chart on the daily, it's trading above its 200-day moving average. But if you look across the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the S&P, if I'm correct, they're all trading below their 200-day moving average. And so what are your thoughts on this trend potentially continuing for us? Or do you think stocks are going to catch up to Bitcoin, or Bitcoin is going to catch up to stocks to the downside?
I'm calling for like 300K plus Bitcoin. Like I'm pretty bullish on Bitcoin. I'm pretty bullish on crypto. I think it's going to outperform stocks.
Okay.
I pretty significantly.
Same with you?
Yeah, I mean, post halving, U.S. buying companies, supply shock. It's at some point that the supply shock kicks in. At some point, you get giant green candles, right? I mean, we're only mining 450 Bitcoin every day, so there's not enough coming into supply. The exchange OTC supply is dwindling, and so it's a no-brainer, right? At some point, you're going to get a giant price move. If you couple that with big headline news like U.S. bought, and I think it's going to come out of nowhere. In the same way that companies announce their buys post the purchase, I think the U.S. is going to do the same. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to perhaps sell some of their gold and then reallocate
What if they use the tariff money?
Yeah, tariff money. I don't know. Either way, wherever that money comes from, I think they're going to buy, and then they're going to smack you in the face with the news like a month later.
Can we role play that real quick?
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think when that news happens, and I truly believe this is right around the corner. You do agree they're going to buy at some point in this year, right?
I hope
the U.S.
So. Yeah, I mean,
your sentiment, you believe it'll happen this year, right?
Yes.
And if it happens this year, I mean, we only got 8 months left. At some point, the news drops, and what happens to the price of Bitcoin when that happens?
I know this sounds kind of obvious and common sense, but just imagine everyone's sitting in their 401ks and their stocks that don't have any exposure to Bitcoin or crypto, and they see their portfolio slowly going down, and then their grandson and cousins and nieces and nephews come over for birthday, Christmas, holiday, I don't know, summer, vacation. And they're like, hey, man, my portfolio's up like 80%. They're like, how? Mm-hmm. I'm down like 15% and I'm 3 years away from retiring, and say, well, grandpa, well, uncle, well, auntie, I got my money in Bitcoin, baby, and some altcoins. And so all jokes aside, though, if you have that dynamic where stocks are flat or trending down and crypto's just crushing it, we talk about retail. Well, like Wall Street retail, you'll start seeing a lot of that money flood in. And hopefully by that time, if that does happen, it won't be just a Bitcoin and ETH ETF. It'll be Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Litecoin, Doge, HBAR, you name it, basket of crypto ETFs, top AI project ETF, top DeFi project ETF. You'll have banks like Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all offering in-house crypto services to where you can log into your bank account. We've said this multiple times, and just buy crypto directly from there. And so that would be that coupled with everything else that we've been talking about on the show, sovereign wealth funds, nation states, yada, yada. It could, 300K, if that happens for us, 300K might be on the low side of what we could see from BTC. And so that's kind of my thoughts. But it's interesting. You know what? Let's do a poll. Do you guys think, Rocco, if you want to throw this in the chat, 1s and 2s, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Do you think Bitcoin will continue to trend higher and stocks trend lower? 1 for yes, 2 for no. I'm curious if you guys think that trend will continue.
Ain't no way our viewers think that the stock market is going to outperform crypto. Come on, man.
Not about outperforming, but will it keep up?
I mean, that's literally what you're saying is outperforming. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll have this conversation after the show. Thank you very much. Forrest, if you want to pull up a Bitcoin chart, my friend, please. I want to share this from Crypto Quant. Now, you know what's funny is the main guy from Crypto Quant, I think his name is Ki Young Zhu or Ki Ji Young, something like that. No, seriously, that's his name. Ki Jing Yu.
Okay, good job.
Anyways, Young Chi. Okay.
Young Chi.
Listen, it's just like calling somebody Paulo and his name is Mateo.
Like
Just butchered the name.
You want me to go and find his real name? It's Young Ki Ju.
Okay, move on.
Kimchi soy sauce.
Okay, you know what? Screw you, Robin. Ki Young Zhu. There it is. This guy right here.
Wow, you got it. Nailed it.
He called.
Give him a call. Pick up the phone.
He called.
Congratulations.
For a bear market. Wow. Right when the bottom was in. And so just take that with a grain of salt. So from Crypto Quant, why Binance data suggests a Bitcoin squeeze is coming. It's from a Novak research. High leverage longs were flushed out between 82 and 88K. Indicating that weak hands had been eliminated. Large short positions remain susceptible above 92K, creating the possibility of a big short squeeze. And these are the charts they put in here. Forrest, if we can go through a Bitcoin chart, and then if you want to comment on this, are you seeing any sort of structure on the chart that tells you, or I don't know if you, I know you have a lot of different metrics and stats you use, but any signs of a potential big short squeeze coming above 95K?
Yeah. I mean, I think right now you're seeing a lot of spot buying. So if we can look at the Coinbase premium down here, which is harder to see. Coinbase premium, if I zoom in, it's flipping positive, and it's been maintaining positive for like the last week or so. So that means like a lot of spot buying on Coinbase coming through. So potentially your bigger buyers, your ETF buyers as well. Meanwhile, funding rate, meaning shorts are paying longs, so you're paying a premium to be short right now. Yeah, a lot of people are trying to short this rally for whatever reason. But what we're looking at here is Bitcoin versus the S&P 500. I'm happy to pull up a Bitcoin chart and look at Bitcoin compared to a few different assets. 2016, 17, 18 cycle. You take your measured move against the S&P 500, it outperformed. You take your measured move last cycle on the symmetric triangle, it performed very much in line with expectations on that measured move. Right now, the measured move on this cup and handle, which is broken out and back tested perfectly, and is continuing in a very steady uptrend of higher highs and higher lows. That measured move takes us about 220+% from where we're at right now against the S&P 500. So if the S&P just stays flat, we'd expect Bitcoin to roughly 3x from here, but we expect it to roughly 3x on top of the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500 goes 10% this year, then we potentially expect it to do another 30% on top of that. You could look at Bitcoin versus gold. Gold's been the top performing asset. This is one of the reasons why I was so bullish on Bitcoin recently around 75K, is because we see this pattern time and time and time again, where Bitcoin creates this descending wedge into its prior impulse against gold. Prior impulse, descending wedge into that, kind of these, prior impulse ranges mapped out in green here, right? Descending wedge. And we are yet again gold was eating Bitcoin's lunch for, basically the entire year, going through from January, from the inauguration until, this week, basically until it bottomed out. Gold was crushing Bitcoin. Now we're seeing Bitcoin pop back against gold.
You think what we saw out of gold's movement, and it went from essentially, I think it was like 2,600, 2,700 up to, briefly 3,500 per ounce over about a 5-month period. So for gold that's had, a slow grind upwards, it's been a long time since gold has really broken out to the level that we're seeing now. And, this long-term consolidation, I just can't believe that gold broke out the way it did, and Bitcoin has not yet followed, or at least done something comparable. And, I know I was kind of looking at the charts, gold versus Bitcoin. Bitcoin did break out earlier than gold did, and then gold followed. So, I guess you can make an argument that, maybe Bitcoin went first and then gold went second. But gold really hasn't fallen back, while Bitcoin had that pullback of 35% from its all-time high. I got this feeling that gold and Bitcoin are going to be at a similar return rate on percentages in the coming month or two. I mean, I'm just expecting big green candle out of Bitcoin, similar to what we saw out of gold. Am I just putting too much correlation that doesn't really?
Yeah, you've been listening to too many Peter Schiff podcasts, my friend.
What do you think?
I'm super bullish on gold. I think gold's nowhere near topped in the coming years and decade. I think this is going to be the decade of gold and potentially Bitcoin as well. I'm a big fan of gold, have been since it broke out around 2000. Looking again at the Bitcoin versus gold chart. So if this chart's going up, that means that Bitcoin is outperforming gold. We just set a higher, Bitcoin's just now beginning, in my opinion, potentially just now beginning its strong trend against gold, right? So something that we saw in 2017, and why I think Bitcoin's capable of just going so much higher, is you get this kind of, nice move upwards, this nice trend upwards, but you get these tight higher highs and higher lows. And what I mean by tight higher highs and higher lows is you almost retrace the entire, you barely make a new high. You get this deep retracement on your prior move upwards. So you just it's almost like a little box pattern, right? That oftentimes will precede parabolic moves. And if you look at the gold versus Bitcoin chart, I think it looks very, 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 very strong. Trying to make an inverse head and shoulders like Bitcoin is against a lot of other charts. But we just set our higher low, and this was like a very, very barely higher high, barely higher low. But if this higher low stands, I actually think that is, that will very likely precede a parabolic move. This is what we saw, a very similar pattern over here before Bitcoin went parabolic from about 10K to 63K last cycle. That's why I think the bull market's like, we are entering the end, like the most aggressive stage of the Bitcoin bull market. You look at Bitcoin versus Apple. Bitcoin versus Apple. This is one of the most bullish. Apple's like one of the best stocks of all time. This is one of the most bullish charts I could show you for Bitcoin. This is a massive inverse head and shoulders, right? So again, a measured move on this is absolutely ridiculous. It almost doesn't feel realistic. But we take a measured move on a breakout of this inverse head and shoulders, you're talking about 300% on top of whatever Apple does. Now, maybe Apple stays flat or maybe even goes down. I don't know. But this is talking about doing a 2, 3, 4x on top of Apple as this breaks out. And I think it's in the process of breaking out. It's certainly trending upwards. So yeah, I'm very, very bullish on Bitcoin across the board. I mean, I don't know a single chart, like I don't know a single chart that on Bitcoin that looks bad. This is just an inverse head and shoulders. This is against the US dollar. So this is your typical Bitcoin chart. This is an inverse head and shoulders that is now seeing a descending wedge back test into our trend line and is bouncing, right? There's nothing about this chart. Like, this is why I was shocked that people were so ready. So let me go back to that. That people were just so ready to call cycle top. And there's nothing here in this trend that indicates that the top of the cycle is in. This is nothing but higher highs and higher lows. Now, if we get rejected here and we come back down to make a new low and we break below 70K, then we can have the discussion of, all right, we have now made a lower high and a lower low. We can discuss, a bear market, but we haven't done that. We've simply made higher highs and higher lows. And this one, I'm very, very bullish on Bitcoin. Fundamental reasons too. I mean, I think Bitcoin's, designed specifically to be the best asset in a trade war, which we're in. So I'm super bullish. Global liquidity increasing. Yeah, I can't think of many reasons.
You mentioned earlier $300,000, and it seemed like you weren't even really putting in much doubt in that number. It almost seemed like you wouldn't be surprised to see it go higher. What would a $300,000 Bitcoin look like on a time frame? I mean, how long would it take to get there? Because obviously you got to knock out some large psychological numbers. And so I'm sure we both agree it wouldn't happen within the next 2 or 3 months. But how long do you think it would take to see a number that high? What is maybe historically, when you get into price discovery, what's a time frame from kind of where we're at to where you would think a not necessarily a top, but some big number like 300,000?
Yeah. So actually, I do think it could happen in the next 3, 4, or 5 months. I think
okay.
If we break through 100K here with any degree of certainty, price moves. So I've kind of thrown on these little bands, I guess, of psychological levels, but essentially these gaps, and this is why one of the many reasons I'm so open to 300K plus Bitcoin, is because historically these gaps in Bitcoin's psychological levels, price historically moves extraordinarily fast through these. In the early days, it moved obviously even faster, where, I mean, this cut through in a matter of 45 days, like a 3-point, we went from $100 to $370 in 45 days. Even in the 2017 cycle, which I think was most closely mirrors where we're at right now, it was 180 to 150 days once we broke through. And that's about 5 months. Last cycle, I think it was even we moved through and we overshot, right? We moved into these clusters, right? This top level, this bottom level is kind of like my minimum target for Bitcoin, 370. I say is my minimum target. I'm kind of expecting 290 to 370 to be a reasonable range, but I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw 500K Bitcoin. I really wouldn't. Over here, we moved, people just forget how aggressively Bitcoin's price can move. first of all, when you've got an uptrend established, but when you're breaking through these levels and going into price discovery, you're talking about 120 days to move from 10K to 37K. That's 4 months of just straight up. And there was no pullbacks. There was no dips. You didn't get to buy any dips here. Like there was no dip buy. Everybody was boxed out, and Bitcoin 3.7x in 120 days. So if we break through this 100K level, and I don't know if it'll happen this week or next week or in 3 weeks, but once we do, I give it about 100 to 150 days before we're pushing 200Ks, 300Ks levels. I just think it's going to move very aggressively, very quickly. And it's like, I mean, you're talking about nation states buying, you're talking about large companies and corporations buying, you're talking about there not being a lot of Bitcoin supply left because look it's been getting all bought up. Like that's how you get these big moves in the first place. It's like in 2017, look at this massive accumulation. It was just getting bought up in an uptrend. More and more Bitcoin's getting accumulated. Pretty soon, there's not a lot left. You break through that psychological gap and it just moves very aggressively upwards. I think we're going to see something very similar to 2017 where we've just been in this just long accumulation. They're finally going to start printing money again. And we're probably going to, I think we're going to move up in a very short period of time. I think I can't think of a better, and I could eat my words here, and this is not financial advice, but I cannot think of a better time to be long Bitcoin and have Bitcoin exposure for the immediate future, for like the next 3 to 6 months. Like, even if you're just looking at it and, let me pull this up, bear with me for just a
Here,
second.
while you pull it up, I'm just going to give a little love to the chat. If you're new here, say hello. I'd love to give you a little shout out of recognition. Saw some new faces here. We got Barkin Mad, Straight Adam, Daniel K, Eugene, Junior Block, Collapsing Star, Ala Meldon, GGB Agent, Imeshi, Jerry, Pablo, PMG, Big Earn, to all of you. Hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Wasn't Big Earn a famous Georgia rapper?
No idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
And also we had 2 super chats from Nathan Lowman, both $20.
Low Masters.
Lowman.
Low Master.
Lowman.
The
Lowman. And so from Nathan Lowman, we got
thanks for the $40.
$40.
Pronounce your last name.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And he said, open the effing club. And he said he didn't apply. Yeah, we're 2 in.
Excuse Robin's retardedness. Sorry. Forrest?
Yeah, I mean, just one other chart. Like, this is Bitcoin's performance after it's halving cycles, like cycle over cycle performance. And everyone's talking about how this cycle is underperformed. Like, okay, great, but what about the catch-up trade? Everyone's just saying, oh, cycle top is in. Even though we're in a monthly and weekly uptrend in Bitcoin, it's like never looked better from a charting perspective. And then here you would expect the orange is this cycle, right? These are prior cycles. This is the time frame over 360 days since halving, or so, about a year since halving. This is like the final stretch of 150 days or so, where you would expect 150 to 180 days or so, where you would expect a top to form in Bitcoin. But usually when Bitcoin forms tops, they're like parabolic blow off tops. Or just very aggressive price action leading into those tops. So yeah, and I'm super bullish. I think from a time frame perspective, like, you definitely want to be exposed to Bitcoin at this moment in time. I can't think of a lot of reasons not to have some Bitcoin exposure here, whether it's the charts, the timing analysis, the fundamentals, the trade war, printing of money, it's just got so many things going for it right now. I'm just super hyper bullish. Not financial advice, not trying to, push anyone to
hyper
buy,
bullish. Let's go.
I'm very long.
Forrest, all the things you mentioned was exactly why when the people that were solely focused on the charts, because you do have some traders and some analysts that only look at charts, right? Fundamentals and, well, maybe not fundamentals, but charts. But there's also narratives and what's happening in the news and all that. And so when I was looking around, and again, everything you mentioned, I was like, there's just no way. Like, my common sense meter is telling me that there's no way. Also, I want to give a shout out to, who was it in here? Was it Pablo Martinez said, you got to have this guy more often on your show, referring to Forrest. I've tried to pitch the idea of getting rid of Robin and bringing Forrest on, but I can't get a majority vote here. Sorry, man. It is what it is. But anyways, he joins us every Friday. And if you want more Forrest, I'd highly recommend you go to 16.ai and get into his Discord. He is extremely active in there. All right. From that, I do want to share a couple more Bitcoin things. Then we'll get into some altcoins and the markets. We'll definitely talk about some XRP. But I thought this was fairly interesting. Norway's sovereign wealth fund didn't want to invest in Bitcoin, saying it was too risky. Now they have reported a loss on safe tech investments of $40 billion. And so hopefully they learned their lesson. And then, okay, let's, you know what? Let's get into altcoins and then I'll get into the SEC. I want to first start with Ondo. Ondo I think it was rallying yesterday, 2 days ago. I don't know about today. I haven't checked on Ondo today. But there was reason for it. And this reason was Ondo met with the SEC Crypto Task Force to discuss tokenization, issuing and selling wrapped tokenized versions of publicly traded U.S. securities. SEC is giving this an audience. And this was, again, part of their meeting.
What do you think that would look like? I mean, I know this is just pure speculation, but
what would it look like?
Would it trade during trade hours if you were to tokenize stocks?
The
right?
point would be for it to trade 24/7 like the crypto markets.
But then
how does it settle?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It seems like it's a little far away, right? It almost seems like, but maybe it's not.
Why do you think it's far away though?
Because the stock market only operates 5 days a week.
Well, didn't the CME
holiday hours?
Who was it that extended their trading hours? The CME or it was?
Yeah, it wasn't the stock.
It wasn't this. It wasn't the Nasdaq. Or it wasn't the NYSE or it was the Nasdaq. But there was one large exchange in traditional finance that extended their trading hours. I think we're going that way regardless, right? You got the Larry Fink thing in Texas. I know that's still probably a far ways away. But that's going to be the future is 24/7, not just in crypto, but in the stock market as well.
You think so?
I think so, man. I absolutely think so.
I don't think it's any time in the near future. I think it's a little further away if that happens.
I don't know.
I don't think the stock market's ready to go 24/7 yet. Just too much is in place at the moment with the 9 to 5s.
I don't know. It's just it's an old, outdated system, man. Like it's 24/7, baby. Money don't sleep.
No, I get that, but let's just be real.
Let's be real.
You genuinely think that the stock exchange is going to switch over to 24/7?
Eventually, yes.
Eventually, yeah. I agree with you.
Less than 3 years.
In
less than 3 years.
2047, maybe.
No, less than 3 years. Forrest, can you break this tie here?
I don't think the stock market has to. I mean, as far as this goes, to tokenize stocks, I don't think you have to trade 24/7, right? You could just trade tokenized versions of them.
Yeah.
So you just buy them on like Ondo chain or whatever. So imagine a similar experience to buying a meme coin on Phantom, but you're buying a tokenized stock. If the stock market's closed, you might pay, the market may decouple from, over the weekend. Like you might have, let's say Tesla closes at $300 on Friday evening. Saturday, when that's closed, you might buy the tokenized version for 302 or 298. But then when the market reopens, that's going to arb back, when it reopens on Monday morning, the difference between the tokenized version and the actual version is going to sync back up. And
we see it right now with the trading apps, right? You can buy over the weekend with Robinhood, and it's not so I think you'd probably see something similar to that, where technically it is still trading 9 to 5, but you can put your orders in, get exposure at off hours. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm bullish on RWAs, man. And I think with Mantra kind of going down, not to say they had any big partnerships, but still, it's one less player in the pool. And then SWE, Forrest, I am going to ask you for a SWE chart if you can. And I'll read this. SWE has the Solana feeling, man, from 2021 cycle. It's got that Solana vibe, got the VC money, it's got the liquidity, it's got the fast moving price action. It's got the consumer-friendly apps and dApps, and right? I mean, don't you get the same feeling, SWI and Solana? So if that's the case, SWI's got a lot more room to run. But this is just one thing that came out of the SWI camp. They partnered with OX Portal and Money.com to bring a virtual SWI MasterCard with Tap to Pay via Apple and Google Wallet. Custom SWI wallet experience inside the X Portal, card issuance, built-in NFT staking and dApps. Again, very reminiscent of what we saw and are continue to see from Solana, which is retail/user-focused dApps solutions. Forrest, SWI has been on a freaking tear. I think it's where is it at now? Over $3.50, right? $3.57. Sitting at number 11, a 2x away from supplanting Tron for the number 10 slot. What are you seeing on the SWI chart, Forrest?
Yeah, so for whatever reason, personally, like I just haven't been able to get on the SWI train to my own detriment, right? Like it's performed super well. So I've missed out. But for me, it's just like I don't know anyone that uses SWI. I really don't. Like one of the big reasons I was loved Solana at $20 because like everyone that I knew a lot of people that used it. I saw a lot of people doing stuff on Solana. I just don't know anyone who uses SWI. That said, what it has going for it is very much in an uptrend. It's made another higher low after making some higher highs. So this thing could get pretty crazy if we can, carve through $10. Maybe we get up to this $37 region, 10x from where it's at right now. I mean, like it's hard to imagine it doesn't perform well if Bitcoin goes to 300K plus. That being said, it does have a little bit of some psychological zones between 370 and $10, and you can kind of see where that $5 level was where it kind of topped out. It got resistance at 370 twice, kind of made your head and shoulders, came back down. Now it's trying once again to get through this 370 psychological level, which is a big level for me. So until it does, personally, like I don't know. I'm not on the SWI train quite yet. Maybe I'll regret that. Maybe it'll have a nice inverse head and shoulders set up and rip through. But again, for me, like I like the chart. Like the chart is definitely there. Like if this was an asset that I was fundamentally bullish on, I'd say this chart looks great. At this exact moment in time, I'd be a little bit hesitant because it's just pumped a ton and it's pumping into resistance. So I'm not like in love with buying SWI given on this chart, like at this exact moment in time, because I think you're potentially setting yourself up to get punished for like a retest of $3. You were fine holding through that and you're very fundamentally bullish on SWI. I mean, go for it. But for me, it just like, I can't figure out what the fundamental reason is, apart from maybe a speculative thesis that, the founders have heavy ties to Facebook and Meta, and maybe, Facebook gives some adoption, plugs it into Facebook at a later date. I don't know. That's purely speculative, but not enough for me to take a position at this moment in time. But if you've been long SWI for a while, you have been crushing it. It's been a top performer. So I can't knock anyone who likes SWI at all, because it has been charting very, very nicely. Maybe we get something like this. That would be
it
be
might
great.
be one of those
Another
things
high
with
low.
SWI where I know that a lot of their users, at least from the research I've done, is from like the Southeast Asia area. I know that they have a strong presence in Vietnam, which is
In the Congo Basin too.
interesting. Oh, they do have a lot of users at Africa as well. I don't know if you're trying to be funny or not.
I was
but-
trying to be.
Yeah. Okay. But no, actually, they have Africa, Southeast Asia, India. It does say when you go into the users and where they're located, there's a good chunk in the U.S., but it seems like Southeast Asia is kind of their prime market for SWI. And so maybe that's why because I agree with you. I don't know anybody that uses SWI. I haven't heard anybody.
Ronaldo.
In my circles.
Ronaldo. Sorry. My bad. It's Friday, guys. Rocco, that was good. And it's Portuguese. What are you talking about over here? Forrest, close your eyes. Close your eyes, Forrest. For the first time ever, SWI flips XRP in 24-hour trading volume. Although by 100. Forrest had a big laugh. Yeah, okay. All jokes aside, let's talk about XRP a little bit. A lot happening in XRP. Okay, so one, I shared this news yesterday. I didn't really get your opinion on this, Rob. I think you were doing your ninja roll out of here to the bathroom or whatever the hell that was. And obviously, Forrest, because you weren't here. But derivatives giant CME to launch XRP futures. I believe the date was May 19th. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it's definitely in May. So that's pretty big. Part of my thing yesterday with this was I don't think we're in the same SEC kind of landscape to where you need to have a futures for 2+ years before they can give you a spot. But either way, this is big, right? Just, intertwining that with Wall Street. You also have this, shout out to Mike from our Patreon community. He knows you're big on XRP, Forrest, and he wanted me to ask you about White Rock, play on BlackRock. And so I did a little digging because I didn't really know anything about it. It's essentially an RWA DApp in the XRP ecosystem. And so this is what they're looking to do: tokenizing equities, government and corporate bonds, gold, silver, and much, much more. And again, this is a project that is on the XRP ledger. And finally, I'm going to roll these three into one for us. 76 million RLUSD tokens supplied in just days on the leading DeFi protocol in all of crypto, which is none other than AAVE. Forrest, lot to unpack there. Feel free to speak on any of these in any order you'd like. But I would also just ask you on the more broader side, what kind of impact can RWAs have on XRPL and specifically the XRP token?
Yeah, so just creates a lot of demand for liquidity, and you can have XRP liquidity pairs with real world assets or fiat stablecoin pairs. I'm very bullish on real world assets and bullish on what it sounds like what White Rock is doing. I'm not super familiar with them, but yeah, that's the whole idea. I think it's one of the best use cases for crypto and for blockchain is to move real world assets on chain. Through stable coins. And then I think some of the biggest markets, as we've seen with gold and silver lately, the amount of volume and trading volume you can see in those markets, precious metals on chain, looks very promising to me. Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, I like everything XRP is doing, everything that's happening for XRP. I do think that, for the foreseeable future, I don't even know that I like XRP's fundamentals. I really do. I think they're very misunderstood. I think a lot of people really don't understand even XRP's tokenomics or the supply stuff. But that said, I truly do believe that if Bitcoin goes to 300K plus, and that's really the backbone for a lot of price targets I have on altcoins, I really don't think it's going to matter in the short. Like all of these things are going to look 10 times more bullish if Bitcoin's price is $300,000 plus. Like imagine Bitcoin was $300,000 right now and XRP was like $2. You'd be like, oh, XRP is so cheap right now, given everything that's happening. So yeah, I think for the foreseeable future, fundamentals matter to a large degree. You kind of have to have the backbone of fundamentals, but for price to really run in a speculative bubble, and I think that's what we're about to get is a big speculative bubble. I don't know that fundamentals matter as much in the short term. Now in the long term, I really like how XRP is positioning themselves fundamentally.
Yeah, and for those people that are kind of worried about the unlocks, and I tell people this all the time, unlocks are much more amplified negatively during bear markets and low liquidity, low volume, right? But when everything's running and you're seeing, $200, $300, $400 billion trading volume days and prices are skyrocketing, it has almost no impact. And so also, that was one of my reasons. This was maybe like 2 years ago, where it's like every month there's a shitload of tokens from the Ripple Treasury, the escrow account, that is introduced into the markets. And so that ends in 2027, I believe. That's number one. But again, number two, if markets are moving and volume and liquidity is up, that is not really going to matter. The markets are going to absorb that with zero issue. So.
Did want to give a little love to the chat, and so see some new people here. We got Derry, Santiago, Darren, Golden Giant, Pablo, CPT, Jinger, 530 SC, Nick Luff, Jared, and love you to all of you. Hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto. Also, we did put out a club goal. So basically, we opened the club here now with admission, and admission is $20 tickets. We got enough of those to get in the club. So, Forrest, I think this might be your first time checking out our newest club integration. I know we shut down the club for a while. It was under construction, but
and I got blamed for it for some reason. And I was getting hate after hate mail after hate mail. I even got death threats.
Yeah, there you go. So we got a new club thing, and so we do what Vegas does best. We entertain you. We have badass clubs and parties. So without further ado, Rocco, let's open up the damn club. Let's go.
For your support. The club is now closed. Done, early closing. So don't ask how much it costs to put that together for us. We don't like talking about that here on the show. Now I've forgotten where we were. We were talking about XRP, I believe.
I think we were talking about
Bitcoin.
You have no idea. 300,000.
Okay.
XRP getting the $2.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, you do have an idea.
Yeah.
Shocker. There you go. So let's pivot from XRP to ETH. I just my brain sometimes just won't catch up with my mouth. Ethereum will become extinct within the next decade, says Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson, as he makes a chilling prophecy. In a recent AMA, Charles Hoskinson claimed that Ethereum's accounting model, virtual machine, and their consensus model are badly designed, a triad of architectural flaws that he thinks are a bane for the blockchain network's survival. This is a quote from him, quote, "People told them not to do it, they did it, and they got where they needed to go." He said, before warning that the fixes adopted so far put in all these weird slashing economics and layer twos and other things whose unintentional outcomes are starting to bite. Hoskinson also slammed Ethereum's layer 2s, which are driving activity away from the main chain. He described these L2s as parasitic, predicting that they will continue to suck out all the alpha of the main chain. He went on to say, quote, "People will start fighting. It'll get harder and harder for Vitalik to be able to hold it together through sheer force of will, and users will gradually migrate to other places, and then they're going to get eclipsed by Bitcoin DeFi." Okay.
All I gotta say is valid, bro. I mean, here's the thing: if they stay the course,
first, Rob?
if they stay the course, valid, bro.
I am the conductor. I did not ask you for your opinion first. I already know what your opinion is.
Conductor,
Robin, what do you think?
Valid, dude. I mean, honestly, if nothing changes, and I guess this is through the ideology, what Charles is saying is that.
Do you think this is just words of a bitter man?
No, I do think it's obviously he has a competitor and he has
those bullet ends mess with his brain.
No, so I just look at it from the perspective of if nothing changes, then nothing changes, right? Everything that we're seeing now, the loss of market cap, the trend away from Bitcoin dominance. it's gonna accelerate. And if nothing changes, because what we're seeing is that other layer ones are adapting, they're growing, they're making larger partnerships, their community is growing. I think that's the big thing. But Ethereum's still outdated. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And what they're doing is exactly that. Is what he said was they're progressing by pushing users to layer 2s. And sure, it's a short-term remedy, but if that's your business model, is that our base layer is slow and inefficient, so use our layer 2s, it's not a really good business model, right? It'd be like having a cell phone and having no signal, no Wi-Fi, and then you got to buy attachments, a signal booster you put on the top of your phone, a Wi-Fi booster on the bottom of your phone, an external keyboard you snap on the side. Like, no. And then you come in with a product that has everything nice and efficient all in one, then that is superior to something else that has to use additional products to be effective. Don't buy a Toyota and put nitrous on it and then put on a new muffler and a spoiler. Just buy the Lambo.
You leave Toyotas out of this.
Just saying, right?
That was a pretty good analogy. Forrest, interesting, he says, L2s are parasitic. You look at some of the other projects, top ones. Solana doesn't need an L2. Cardano doesn't need or have an L2, although the user there is not nearly as much as Solana or ETH. What are your thoughts on the outlook here from Charles? And anything you agree or disagree with?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the ETH L2 being parasitic, but it's also interesting. I think he said something along the lines of, if I'm not mistaken, if I caught it correctly, that Bitcoin DeFi is going to
eclipse.
Eclipse. That's the weird one for me, because it's like, all right, well, ETH had to scale with L2s. Bitcoin doing Bitcoin DeFi at scale, how do you do it without L2? And maybe I'm not a super technical person in computer science or cryptography, but I know that Bitcoin does suffer from high fees, which I get is fine, right? Store value, whatever. You don't send 1 million transactions. But if you're going to start getting into saying that, Bitcoin's going to scale DeFi, all right, how are you going to scale Bitcoin DeFi without L2s, which we just kind of agree on are parasitic?
Because Bitcoin is a new star system, Forrest. Did you not read Saylor's 21 Bitcoin things? Jesus.
Yeah. Look, I can get behind Bitcoin as a decentralized store of value, way to send large liquid sums of money across borders, despite, governments and capital controls and tariffs. I get all that. But DeFi, I think, is probably going to probably take place on a more robust L1.
For the whole history of Bitcoin, history of Bitcoin, we've always heard about all of these different utility use cases that Bitcoin can do, but nobody ever uses it. They're talking about buying a cup of coffee. You got NFTs and ordinals. It got a little flash in the pan. You had the was it crypto, the kitties? I don't know. Anyways, they've had a lot of different ideas and a lot of different verticals that tried to take off or launch off of Bitcoin. I'm not saying that none of them didn't have any success, but it really wasn't. It wasn't the thing. It never caught on, right? It never got market dominance. It might have. I think Ordinals was the closest. I think it got a little NFT love, but that was in the bear market when the NFTs market
lasted all but.
Yeah, and NFT market was already kind of down and out anyway, so it didn't take much volume to be the leader.
That narrative lasted 2 minutes, bro.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I just think that why use, if you're looking to participate in DeFi, why do you have to use Bitcoin versus another layer one?
What do you mean?
Well, give me a reason.
$1.7 trillion. That's the reason.
No, but I'm saying that if you can guarantee security, and I understand that you will never be quite as secure as Bitcoin because of the miners, where you can make that argument, but I think that cryptography at this point and blockchain technology for the prominent layer ones like XRP and Cardano, they're just as safe from, I guess you could say, like an attack or hack or exploit as Bitcoin's network would be on a layer 2. And so I don't know. I don't see any advantages of using Bitcoin. I just don't. Not for that use case. Not for DeFi. I just think like, hey, I'm gonna do DeFi. Why not just use Solana? Why not use Cardano? Why not use ETH?
You're looking at the wrong way. They're not using Bitcoin for DeFi. They're trying to tap into the money that's just sitting there idly doing nothing.
They're trying to tap into the security.
No, they're trying to tap into the liquidity.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
That's what they're tapping into. And so they're trying to build solutions that can tap into that liquidity while keeping everything as native as possible.
But the thing is don't nobody want to surrender their liquidity, right? And
that's
so when you
question.
say tap into liquidity, ain't nobody going to stake or lend out their Bitcoin to facilitate DeFi. Now, I'm sure some people will. I'm not saying it wouldn't exist if it was offered, but realistically, people, those are
for the hardcore,
two different mindsets.
Yeah, for the hardcore Bitcoiners, yes, of course not. But what if there's a way for, let's just say, the ETF holders of the BlackRock ETF that currently has 500,000 Bitcoin or whatever that amount is? I don't know. I'm just saying, I agree. The Bitcoin super maximalist, what is the triple maxi that for not for us?
Super triple maxi.
Super triple maxi 3x95, the one that Michael Saylor says, yeah, those guys aren't going to do that. But you have some people that hold Bitcoin that are just like, hey, you know what? I'll take 15, 20%. While the Bitcoin does
ain't nobody gonna.
You say ain't nobody, but days about.
We know what happens if you get 15, 20% APY on a crypto. You threw the random number out there, and I'm just making fun of your random number.
It's not the real number, man. Jesus. Anyways, let's listen into our new SEC chairman, Mr. Paul Atkins.
Much for coming today and listening online out in the internet land. And so welcome to the third roundtable of the SEC's crypto.
Are we screwed? He just said internet land. Fuck. Is this going to be another Gary Gensler thing?
We are coming live to you on YouTube, on the internet land.
Yeah, it's a little strange. Okay, well.
Crypto Task Force, and as Richard was saying, I really do salute the commission and taking this initiative on, and Commissioner Ueda for acting on it, and obviously for Commissioner Peirce and all the staff's work. But so this is now my fourth day back at the commission after two prior stints here, and I really am looking forward to working here and eager to tackle long festering issues such as the regulatory treatment of digital assets and distributed ledger technologies, and working with my fellow commissioners and the staff in doing it, and soliciting outside input as well, obviously. So in addition, my warmest personal thanks go to Commissioner Peirce for her principled and tireless advocacy for common sense crypto policy within the United States. It's no wonder that she justly has earned the title of Crypto Mom, and Commissioner Peirce is certainly the right person to lead the effort to come up with a rational regulatory framework for crypto assets in their markets. And thanks also.
I know you were worried about Gary
refreshing.
Gensler 2.0, but
Yeah, what a refreshing. No, I wasn't worried. I just wanted to.
you wanted to throw that.
Just wanted to throw it out there, man. Like, hey, man, it's not always. It ain't always just sunshine and rainbows, you know. So, what a refreshing change, though. You know, remember this is the replacement for Gary Gensler, who has just time and time again went up and took a podium or went on an interview or did a cringe YouTube video and just repeatedly hammered home.
Talking about the HR video?
Yeah, that was bad. But they repeatedly hammered home our previous SEC chair that crypto are securities. They are not commodities. They can't trade. They're full of scam and fraud and fraught with customer, all the dumb words that fool used. And so I'll say that this is refreshing, man. This is a good change.
I'm happy you feel refreshed.
I do.
Forrest, do you feel as refreshed as Robin does?
Yeah, it sounds bullish, right? Like I think the prior SEC, like even even just an SEC that just let crypto live, like isn't trying to meddle and actively destroy crypto, is bullish for crypto. But now you have an SEC that's looking to support it. So
bullish for the U.S.,
Yeah.
man. It's like bullish. So like let's bring crypto companies to the U.S. It's like all the
I'm
big
so
names.
tired of using VPNs, bro.
Yeah, all the big names are in Hong Kong. Like, yeah, let's get rid of the VPNs. Let's trade here in the US. Let's have all the exchanges have a normal, website that we don't, not a US version, have a normal website that the rest of the globe has. Let's share the global liquidity here in the US. Let's bring the companies here. Let's have the big conventions here. It's gonna be pretty badass, man.
All right, guys, that'll do it for the show today. Forrest, if you don't mind telling people if they enjoyed your analysis today, where can they find more of you?
We have a Discord group, which can be joined if you want to go to Sistine.ai. Also post a lot on Twitter. The handle is @SistineResearch. So pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, I highly recommend you go join his Discord. A lot of great stuff in there. It's honestly probably my favorite Discord to be in, outside of obviously Sin City Cryptos. Duh. While you're in Discord, join our Discord too. And so that link is in the description of the video. Forrest, we thank you as always for joining us. Love your insight and everything. And so coming up on what, 3 years since you've been joining our show consistently
Yeah, it's
every
been a
single
while.
week? Pretty crazy, man. Dude,
Sure.
wait until you see the back, bro. It's
Yeah. some
minty.
pictures.
Minty. It's looking good. Shout out to Rob and Rocco. I know they were here pretty late yesterday. Everything fixed or
No.
no? Okay.
No.
Perfect. So we'll end the show and we'll go back there and fix what we need. Rocco, tornado us out of here. We want to thank every single one of you for joining us today. We hope you had fun, learned some things. Come join me later today at 2 p.m. Pacific. I'll be doing my daily trading show. Join me there. Until then, my guys, my friends, have a great weekend.
Info, gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Name the coin, it's your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy the dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they
Oh man, sorry, bro. Last minute. I got you. I'll take a look at an 80 chart for you today, and I got you on. I got you next week if you want a chart from Forrest. I got you.
Letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.